Ram Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam pangam langayate giram yat kripatamaham vande Shri Gurum Dinadharinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Just give me 1 second. This goes live. Okay. So welcome to all the devotees here for our 11th chapter today. Sorry, 12th chapter today. But we will review the 11th chapter also. The 12th chapter is a very short chapter. It has just 20 shlokas. So it's all about bhakti. So we can review what we studied in the 11th chapter yesterday. What was the single word summary for the 11th chapter yesterday? Form. Very good. What does this mean, form? You can unmute yourself or speak, Sapna Mataji. Form of Krishna. Okay, very nice.
The universal form of Krishna.
Universal form. So how many forms do we get to see in the 11th chapter?
Universal form, then the Shama Sundara form, the two-handed, and Virat Rupa, the four-handed.
Yes, the four-handed form. So what is, as it relates to the universal form, what is an interesting fact about that form? Is it permanent? Is that form permanent? No. Okay. So how long does it last? How long does the form last?
Until that creation is over or something like that, you told, no, Mataji?
Yes, until the creation is over. So that means the Virat Rupa or cosmic form is not permanent. It lasts as long as this cosmic world is present. Okay. What did we understand about Arjuna's mood when he requests to see the form of the Lord? Was he demanding or what was his mood?
Mood of humility.
Humility. He said, if you feel that I deserve to see, or if you feel I am qualified to see this form, then Arjuna asks, you may kindly show me this form. Is Arjuna convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Lord? Yes, he's convinced. But because the Lord has been describing his opulences in chapter 10, Arjuna was curious to see how is it possible for Krishna to be everywhere and in everything simultaneously. So that was what he was curious about. And therefore, out of that curiosity and out of humility, he asks Krishna, can you please show me that universal form? So yes, Arjuna is very, very humble when he requests to see this form. And we can also similarly approach the Lord for whatever it is that we are desiring, but we can approach it from a sense of humility. We saw the difference between Duryodhana's mood and Vidura's mood. Vidura was ready to serve the Lord. He was anxious to greet the Lord. The Lord does not reciprocate with Duryodhana, although he is sitting in a king's position. And he has far more opulence. That means you cannot buy Krishna with your wealth and a pomp and fame, but you can buy Krishna with your surrender, with your humility, with your love. You can buy Krishna very easily. So Krishna said, you don't have love for me and I don't have hunger in my stomach for whatever it is that you have to offer. Krishna is actually hungry for our love. He is not hungry for your opulence because he is opulent. So all of your opulence comes from Krishna. All of our knowledge comes from Krishna. Everything comes from Krishna. So what is it that you can offer him? You can just offer him yourself. That Duryodhana was not ready to do. But Vidura's wife, Vidurani, offers the Lord the skin of the banana, but it was offered with such love and humility that he accepted it. He said, I'm full. When Vidura tried to correct the mistake of his wife, Krishna said, no, 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 I'm already full. I'm very, very happy with what I received. So Krishna always reciprocates with your love. You cannot purchase Krishna with anything else but your love. So wherever there is bhakti, there is Krishna. Wherever there is pride, it breeds a competitive spirit, and Krishna does not like that. He does not reciprocate with that. So if we want to capture Krishna's attention, then we need to begin that journey with surrender. So what is the reason the Lord has to show his universal form? It's to create faith in those who may not have faith that he is a supreme Lord. And it is also to prove that there are fake gods or people who claim themselves to be Bhagavan. And therefore we should be careful who is actually Bhagavan. Yes, any great person can also be called Bhagavan, but that does not mean they are the supreme controller. They are not Ishvara. All of us are Ishvara with a small I. Krishna is Ishvara with a capital I. So love conquers Krishna's heart. And then who are the three people who describe the universal form? Sanjaya. Yes, then Krishna himself. Yes.
Arjuna.
And Arjuna. Yeah. So Krishna describes first, then Sanjaya is describing the universal form to whom? To Dhritarashtra, who's sitting in the palace with him. And then Arjuna describes everything that he sees. Some horrific scenes of soldiers being killed, crushed between the teeth of the cosmic form. So Arjuna gets perturbed because he's never seen this form before. He is always associated with the two-handed. And in that context, we discussed formality and informality, or more, what can you call it? More intimacy. Right? In a formal attire, you may not have that much intimacy with the Lord. So we see in his four-handed form, the Lord is formal. So if you go to Vaikuntha, everybody has a four-handed. But it's only Lord Narayana who has the Kaustubha and the Srivatsa mark. The Srivatsa mark is like a little silver hair, one strand of silver hair on the Lord's chest is called the Srivatsa. So only the Lord has the Kaustubha jewel and the Srivatsa mark, but everybody else is also looking just like the Lord, with this one exception. So in Vaikuntha, everybody is worshipping the Lord with a great deal of awe and reverence. But if you shift your focus and move the camera to Goloka Vrindavan, then the Lord is not wearing his formal attire. He doesn't have four hands. He has just two hands as Shyamasundara. And there he enjoys his pastimes with his devotees in different rasas. And we will discover those rasas today. What are those rasas with which you can have an intimate connection with Krishna? So Krishna says, see, Arjuna, I've already put all these people to death I want you to just cooperate with me. How can we cooperate with Krishna? By following his instructions. So the beginning of surrender means you have some faith in the Lord's instructions and you follow those instructions. So Krishna says, Nimitta matram bhavasavya saci, meaning you become an instrument in my hands. That will be good for you. So even though Duryodhana tries to capture Krishna and arrest him when Krishna arrives to discuss a solution to avoid this catastrophic war, even though Krishna shows his universal form to Duryodhana, Duryodhana has no fear and no faith and no consideration that Krishna is a supreme Lord. Why? Because he is so overcome with greed and envy. That's why Krishna repeatedly says in the Bhagavad Gita, only the non-envious can understand who I am. Or Krishna says, because you're not envious, Arjuna, I'm going to reveal some confidential knowledge to you. So Duryodhana had deep envy towards the Lord. So imagine seeing the universal form and not being one bit perturbed, not being impressed, not being scared, not questioning yourself, oh my God, who is this and who am I? And, zero. So you can imagine what kind of position or personality was Duryodhana. So that takes us to chapter 12. So let me share my screen. Yes. So what is the single word summary for today's chapter? Did anybody notice on the poster what it was? Manual. Yeah, what is the manual? Why are we saying manual? What do you think that means? Now that Krishna has shown his universal form and Arjuna has understood that this, yes, indeed, this is the Supreme Lord. And remember in the 3rd chapter, Krishna has said, all of us must work and offer it as a sacrifice to Lord Vishnu. So if you're going to work for somebody, you want to know what are the terms and conditions of that work, of the job offer letter. So the terms and conditions are described in this 12th chapter. The 12th chapter is called Bhakti Yoga, which is the last chapter in the middle portion of the Gita. So chapters 7 to 12 are all about Bhakti Yoga, the different facets of Bhakti Yoga. So here it begins with the Lord establishing for us that devotional service is the topmost way in which one can unite with Him. And Krishna is going to summarize the ladder of devotional service. What is the topmost and what is the lower rungs of the ladder look like? Now that Arjuna has seen the cosmic form, a thought occurs to Arjuna. And Arjuna's question is as follows, which is, I have seen the form. I also understand great devotees also worship your formless aspect. So therefore, this chapter, Krishna is going to talk about, there are 2 concepts, in Vedic philosophy. One is called worshipping the personal form of the Lord. The other is worshipping the impersonal features of the Lord. So that is the crux of Arjuna's question. Which is better? So Arjuna uvacha evam satata yuktaye bhakta stvam paryupasate ye chapyaksharam avyaktam Tesham ke yoga vittamaham. Arjuna inquired, which are considered to be more perfect? Those who are always properly engaged in your devotional service, or those who worship the impersonal Brahman, the unmanifested? So Arjuna is asking Krishna directly, which type of worship is superior? Worshipping the formless, where people believe that the Lord does not have a form. Actually, the Lord has both. The Lord has form and also he is formless. But some people prefer to worship the formless aspect of the Lord, and some people prefer to worship the form of the Lord. So imagine, all of us have come from parents who have form. Every Jivatma has form because their parent has a form. So how can we say that the Lord does not have form? Ultimately, we are all coming from Krishna, right? So if Krishna has a form, how we cannot have a form? The only difference is that the Lord has a spiritual form. And when we leave the spiritual world, we leave our spiritual form behind. And when we enter the material world, we form. However, even when the Lord leaves the spiritual world and comes to the material world, he does not take on a material form. He is always in his original spiritual form. So it doesn't matter. He could be Narsimadev, but Narsimadev's form is also eternal. He could come as Lord Ram. Lord Ram's form is also eternal. He could come as Vamanadev. Vamanadev's form is also eternal, in the sense they all have their specialized places in the Vaikuntha world. The cosmic form is not permanent. But the four-handed form exists in Vaikuntha, and the two-handed form exists in Goloka Vrindavan. So that was Arjuna's question. Let us see what is Krishna's answer. Krishna says, those who fix their minds on my personal form and are always engaged in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith are considered by me to be most perfect. So not only is Krishna saying which path or which aspect of worship is better, he is also saying his bhaktas are more perfect than those who worship the formless aspect. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, those who fix their minds on my personal form and are always engaged in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith are considered by me to be most perfect. So this settles any argument that anybody may provide you. You can tell them, you please go read Shloka number 2 of chapter 12. And also read Shloka number 1, where Arjuna is actually asking the question. So in the 5th Shloka, Krishna talks about those who are worshipping his formless aspect. Klesho dhikata rastesham avyakta satta chetasam avyakta higatir dukkham deha vadbhid avapyate. So here Krishna is saying, for those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. Because what do these type of yogis do? They focus on the formless aspect of the Lord. And because you are occupying a body and you're trying to meditate on something that does not have form, Krishna is saying that is going to be very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. So again, you have Krishna's final word on this, that those who worship the impersonal aspect of the Lord, they are going to struggle to advance. the reason Krishna is saying, because you are occupying a form, but your mind is trying to focus on the formless, there is some natural conflict, difficulty created for you there. Therefore, Krishna is saying to make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami tries to describe to Parikshit Maharaj how you can see the Lord in everything. For example, he says, when you look at the clouds, you can see that, you know, this is the Lord's hair. When you see the trees, you can imagine that this is the Lord's hair on his body. When you see the oceans, you can imagine that this is the Lord's blood. So now you may wonder, why is Shukadeva Goswami describing all of this in this way? Because for those who cannot conceive of a form, he tries to explain actually the cosmic form. Like, for example, the mountains and hills are the bones of the Lord, etc. So he tries to use all of the material objects and link them to how you can see the Supreme Lord. To which Parikshit Maharaj says, oh no, this is not something that I can do. I am so attached to the personal form of the Lord. But why is Parikshit Maharaj attached to the personal form of the Lord? Because he saw the personal form that came to protect him in the womb of his mother, Uttara. And from that time, he was searching for, is this the person that came to protect me? Is this the person that came to protect me? That's why he's called Parikshit. He's always questioning, who's the Supreme Lord? So he tells Shukadeva Goswami, the way you are describing the cosmic form and the relation to the various features in the cosmic world to the Lord's body, he says, this is not something that I'm comfortable with. And I prefer to worship the form of the Lord because I know I have an intimate connection with him. So that's exactly what Krishna is saying here. It is not very easy to focus on the forms. So if we had to understand it a little differently, you can just look at this table here. The difference between those who worship the formless and those who worship the form. So what are the people who are worshipping the formless? What are they doing? They are meditating on the unmanifested. Unmanifested means it's just this white light. And the white light does not have a form. So they're meditating on something that has not fully manifested itself. Whereas the devotees are worshipping a form. And because they are worshipping a form, they get attached to the form. Can you imagine getting attached to white light? Is it possible? What do you think? Is it possible to express your love, your satisfaction, your anxiety, your level of surrender to something that is just a light? It's very difficult. That's why Krishna calls it problematic and difficult and challenging. So even when we go to Tirupati, if we get a 2-second darshan of the Lord, it's very hard to observe the Lord, what are the positions of his hands and which hand is holding what. And there are so many different variations of this Mahavishnu. Different hands in different positions holding different objects or implements. So worship of the deity form allows you to develop a deep love and affection and attraction to the Lord. Then it is very easy compared to worshipping the formless. So what does a yogi have to do in order to focus on this white light, the impersonal Brahman? He has to learn how to control his senses. In the sense, he has to negate everything, right? You remember that story of that boy who went to the forest? He got distracted by the girl, first her beauty, so he closed his eyes. Then her anklets, so he closes his ears. Then the beautiful roses or something that she's wearing, so he shuts his nose. You see, it's very difficult to control the senses. But then his mind is still dwelling on, is she here? Did she come today? So hence, worshipping the formless means you have to really control your senses, which is very difficult to do. Whereas for a devotee finds it very easy. We just have to go to the temple and smell the tulsi leaf or the flowers offered to the Lord. We just have to use our lips to honor prasadam. We can use our mouth to chant the holy names of the Lord. We can hear Harikatha. We can take darshan with our eyes. So it's very easy for a devotee because instead of negating anything, they are just using their senses in a positive way to connect to Krishna. That is so easy. That it is not artificial. Because your senses naturally want to be engaged. You can't tell your nose, don't smell anymore. You can't tell your ears, don't hear anymore. It's not possible to do all of that. That is why you have to go into the forest. Even there, you think there are no temptations? There are temptations there too. We hear great rishis who got tempted. So what is the goal of a person who is focused on formless worship? They are primarily trying to understand the Brahman feature of the Lord or the Paramatma feature of the Lord by studying the Upanishads, becoming expert in Sanskrit, and focusing on the infinite consciousness. Whereas what is a bhakta doing? The bhakta is simply trying to understand Krishna by practicing what is called Navadvipa Bhakti. Prahlad Maharaj says, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padasevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakhyam Atma Nivedanam. You can do all 9 limbs of this bhakti, or you can achieve perfection just by doing one. So let us look at who achieved perfection by listening. Parikshit Maharaj. For 7 days straight, focused listening. No sleep, no food. 7 days and 7 nights, continuous listening of Harikatha. Who achieved perfection by Kirtanam? Shukadev Goswami. In order for Parikshit Maharaj to hear for 7 days continuously, somebody had to be speaking it. And that person speaking it was actually Shukadev Goswami. So like this, if you look at each of the limbs, you will get examples of great devotees who have perfected one or more of these 9 limbs. But the greatest example who perfected all 9 limbs, do you know who that is? Who perfected all 9 limbs of bhakti, the Navadvipa Bhakti? He comes in Srimad Bhagavatam. And we spoke about him a few days back. Actually, even yesterday. Who's that one bhakta who used everything, all 9 limbs, complete surrender? Who's that? Is there an example of such a devotee? Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, yeah, I mean, he's the Supreme Lord himself. But I'm talking about a devotee who does Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atmanivedanam. Acha, okay. I don't think anybody is getting the answer right. The answer is Ambarish Maharaj. Ambarish Maharaj, it is said in Srimad Bhagavatam, he's Samrat, he's a great king. How much tension and responsibilities would he have had in his life? But Ambarish Maharaj demonstrates that you can be a grahastha, you can be a kshatriya, you can have a very important role and responsibility in society and still be a great devotee of the Lord. So this Navadvipa Bhakti is Ambarish Maharaj, a great devotee of the Lord. Now you understand why the Lord says, I'm not going to call off the Sudarshan Chakra because I don't control Sudarshan Chakra. Sudarshan Chakra will go wherever my devotee needs to be protected. So you go fall at the feet of Ambarish Maharaj. That's what Durvasa Muni was told. So as we saw, Krishna himself says that worshipping the formless is very difficult, it's problematic. Whereas learning to love someone, especially if that someone is the all-attractive Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then that is quite simple and natural. So a devotee has no such difficulties that a impersonalist would have. As we said, you cannot develop and build a relationship with something that does not have form, but you can have an intimate connection with the Lord when you worship his form, whichever form you are attracted to. Second thing is the impersonalist, whatever they achieve, they depend on their own effort. Whereas Krishna himself personally liberates his devotees. He's deeply engaged in his devotees' life. He has a hand in his devotees' life. Therefore, devotees do not worry about outcomes because they know Krishna is in control. They just have to be patient. There is a particular term used, especially in Vaishnava philosophy, about this impersonalist aspect of depending on our own effort versus Krishna helping us. So this particular philosophy, one was propounded by Vedanta Desikar, where the philosophy is the difference between a mother cat and a mother monkey, or a baby cat and a baby monkey. The mother does not hold on to the baby monkey, but the mother has to move from tree to tree or branch to branch. It is up to the baby to hold on tightly to the mother so that they do not fall, which means the effort is made by the baby and not by the mother. This is called Markata Kishora Nyaya. The logic of observing what is the position of the baby monkey, quite precarious. If it does not hold on tightly, it could fall. It will be separated from its mother. Whereas this other Vairagya is called the Marjara Kishora Nyaya. Marjara Kishora Nyaya means the kitten. The kitten is least bit bothered. It is the cat that is very anxious to protect the kitten. And the cat will do anything to keep its kitten safe. Even if the kitten is held in its mouth, the kitten doesn't experience anything but the bliss and love of its mother. The kitten is very peaceful in the mouth of its mother. But the cat is restless. The cat is restless to provide all protection to its kitten, and it does not stop until it provides complete protection to the kitten. So this Markata Kishora Nyaya was propagated and advanced by Vedanta Desikar from the Sri Sampradaya. But it is said that the Marjara Kishora Nyaya was actually propounded by the name that I have here is Manavala Mamuni. I have never heard that name before. So, and perfect opportunity to do a little bit more research on who this wonderful personality is. So therefore, for the formless worship, you're completely dependent on your own effort to get to God. You have to hold on to the Lord. Whereas for a devotee, the Lord holds on to you. You don't have to worry. And if our final goal is Satchidananda, then that goal is not accomplished by those who are engaged in formless worship. They, at best, will get two realizations: Sat realization and Chit realization. Sat means eternity, Chit means knowledge. Whereas the devotee gets all three: Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Ananda is bliss here. And the bliss is represented by Srimati Radharani. So that's why Radharani is called the Halladini potency of the Lord. She is the pleasure potency of the Lord. So in this, you get all three realizations for a devotee. So just because the impersonal worship is harder and it's a more complicated method, does not mean it is the better method. We have this unfounded belief that something that is harder must be better and more precious and more valuable and more perfect. Whereas Krishna is saying you select the simplest method because that's the easiest way to get my attention. And the simplest and easiest way is to perform Bhakti Yoga. So just like when we have a baby, we love, waking up the baby, giving the baby a bath, feeding the baby, dressing up the baby, taking the baby out. And we experience so much joy. Definitely you can ask the mothers how much joy they experience with their babies or even with their grandchildren. Similarly, we will experience that same kind of joy when we wake up the Lord every day, when we dress him up every day, when we offer him bhoga every day. And in this way, by establishing a personal relationship with the Lord, we are also experiencing a great deal of joy. So that is the benefit of having a personal relationship with the Lord. Therefore, deity worship is an important aspect of Navadvipa Bhakti. It's a very important aspect. There are some beautiful videos on how to do deity worship at home and what's the right way to do it. Maybe one day we can watch those videos. How to wake up the Lord, how to give him a bath, how to dress him up, how to worship him, how to put him to bed. So there are details of how you actually do deity worship at home also. Of course, deity worship in the temple will be far more elaborate and far more strict than what you want to do at home. So in the 7th shloka, the Lord said, Stesham aham samudharta mrityu samsara sagarat bhavami nachirat partha maya veshita chetasam. Those who worship me, having fixed their minds upon me, O son of Pritha, for them I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. It's a beautiful shloka, worth meditating on. This is the highest form of bhakti Krishna is talking about. So we are now coming to what is called the yoga ladder, where the Lord is talking about the topmost. What is the topmost? Which he's already said in shloka number 34 of the 9th chapter. Man mana, meaning you're always thinking of Krishna. So bhavamad bhaktaha, you are worshipping me because you've become my devotee. What is Krishna saying? He's clearly saying here, I am the swift deliverer. From what? We are trying to escape this jail cell. If we don't escape it, we have to take birth again and again. We have to keep increasing our sentence in this jail cell. Imagine being a criminal and then you do some more crimes inside the jail, can you imagine how the punishment will be? It will be more and more severe. So that's where we are. We are trapped in this jail cell. And we keep committing more and more crimes and making our situation worse. But if you become Krishna's devotee, this ocean of birth and death, which is so hard to cross on your own, even if you are an expert swimmer, you will not be able to cross the ocean. You need help. And Krishna says, it is so easy if you become my devotee, if you perform Ananya Bhakti or Kevala Bhakti. This is Kevala Bhakti, you're worshipping only Krishna and nobody else, because you have complete faith that he will be your ultimate deliverer from this samsara. So the acharyas explained, can you imagine being told you have to cross an ocean from this side to that side on your own? Is it possible? We won't even start because we'll think, oh, I don't have the capacity, I don't have the tolerance, I don't have the strength, I don't have the qualities. But acharyas say, if you have faith in Krishna, then that ocean becomes like a small puddle of water, the size of a calf's hoof print. If a calf were to step on the mud and leave an imprint, the little water that is collected in that hoof print, that is how easy it is for you to cross over into the spiritual world. Hence, Krishna says, for them, I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. So we can understand that whatever it is that we are trying to do, we have to just learn to have complete faith in Krishna. And just simply follow Krishna's instructions and you can go back to the spiritual world in this life. Now, if you think about the Gajendra Moksha, we were doing a Bhakti Vaibhav class, and in that Bhakti Vaibhav class, we got a new perspective on this Gajendra Moksha. This Gajendra Moksha, what happens is this Gajendra comes as an elephant. In his previous life, he was King Indradyumna. But for whatever reason, he did some bhakti, but he ended up in the form of an elephant. And one day, he's the king of the elephants as well. So he enters the river and a crocodile gets hold of his leg, hind leg. And at first, he calls out for help. Who does he call for help? His family members, which is what Draupadi also did, right? She first called out for help. She petitioned her family, her husbands, the elders. Then she tried on her own. Same thing, Gajendra first petitioned his family members. They all tried. They could not extricate him. He tried. He could not extricate himself. Finally, he remembered a shloka from his previous life. He was holding this lotus, beautiful lotus flower in his trunk, and the Lord came quickly. And the way it is described in Srimad Bhagavatam, the Lord is in such a hurry to get to his devotee, he didn't dress himself up properly because he was so anxious to protect and rescue his devotee. So one aspect in which we understand this particular pastime is that Gajendra remembered doing bhakti and offered a prayer to the Lord, and therefore the Lord came running. Another perspective is, one more Acharya says, if you actually look at this pastime, Gajendra was not asking to be rescued. He said, I don't care if I die, but before I die, I want to complete my seva. What was Gajendra's seva that he was anxious to complete? I thought it was a beautiful explanation. So one explanation is Gajendra cried out to the Lord and the Lord came very swiftly. Another way to understand this Gajendra Moksha is Gajendra was thinking, I want to finish my seva before I die. What was the seva that he wanted to finish? He wanted to complete his seva. What was that seva? So he's telling the Lord, I didn't call to you so that you can rescue me. I just wanted to complete my seva. What was the seva that Gajendra wanted to complete? Any guesses? Yes, he wanted to offer the lotus to the Lord before he dies. So he tells the Lord, I just wanted to offer this lotus flower at your lotus feet. At least my last breath, I should be doing some seva, no? I should finish my seva. So Gajendra's mood was that I wanted to complete my seva. I don't care for my own life, but I want to complete my seva. But do we do that? Do we think, okay, let me finish everything in this life. Let me complete my seva. So this is an example of real devotion, and therefore Krishna is very easily captured by this level of devotion, where devotees are dedicated to their sevas. No matter what comes, just look at the position of Srila Prabhupada, how much challenges Prabhupada had. Yet he was determined to finish his seva. That is why they are called great devotees, they are acharyas, because they set a phenomenal, exemplary standard of devotion. So Krishna is saying, Mayeva mana adhatsva, Mai buddhim niveshaya, devashishyasi mayeva, ata urdhvam na samshayah. Just fix your mind upon me. So Krishna is now instructing us. Krishna's preference is that we do Kevala Bhakti. This is the highest form of devotional service where your entire life is dedicated to Krishna. Therefore, Krishna says, just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and engage all your intelligence in me. So Krishna has selected our subtle body and said, use your subtle body in devotional service. What is our subtle body? Mind, intelligence, and false ego. So if you use your mind to always think about Krishna, if you use your intelligence to serve Krishna, what is Krishna saying? Thus you will live in me with always, without a doubt. So this is the topmost form of worship where you're using your subtle body to serve Krishna. What all did Prabhupada do? Prabhupada was always chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Prabhupada was always writing. Writing what? Writing translations and explanations for shlokas in Bhagavad Gita, in Srimad Bhagavatam, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and then Prabhupada wrote more than 80 books for you and me. So in this way, Prabhupada was using his intelligence in serving Krishna, because Prabhupada knew, and he said so himself, that my books will be the law books for 10,000 years in the future. That in the future, devotees will study Prabhupada's books and rectify their lives and become devotees of Krishna. Hence, Krishna says, thus you will live in me always, without a doubt. So this is the topmost rung of the ladder, which is your maturity in devotional service, where you're always absorbed in Krishna. So what are the different levels or rasas that we have when we're worshipping the Lord? Rasas means different moods or mellows, as Srila Prabhupada translates it. So there is Shantaras, there's Dasyaras, Sakhyaras, Vatsalyaras, and Madhuryaras. So different ways in which you can have a relationship with Lord Narayana or Krishna is in tranquil devotion. So Shantaras is there in Vaikuntha. It is also there in Golok Vrindavan. Dasyaras exists in Vaikuntha. It is also there in Golok Vrindavan. A little bit of Sakhyaras is there in Vaikuntha, but Sakhyaras is there completely in Golok Vrindavan. For example, the friendship between Sudama and Krishna, friendship between Arjuna and Krishna. But Salyaras is there only in Golok Vrindavan. It is not there in Vaikuntha. You cannot go tell Lord Narayana, I'm going to treat you like a baby. It is not possible. Because you've never heard of Narayana being a baby and performing baby pastimes. But certainly you hear of Krishna performing his Balya Leela. Therefore, it invokes the mood of wanting to be a parent to the Lord. And that mood only exists in Goloka Vrindavan. Similarly, Madhuryaras, where you think that the Lord is your lover and you want to have a relationship with him in that mood. And that is also only present in Golok Vrindavan. So now Krishna has said, my preference is that you use your mind and intelligence to worship me and always think of me. But that will be his pure devotees. What about the rest of us? So Krishna is giving us one more option. Atha chittam samadhatum na shaknoshi mai sthiram abhyasa yogena tataha mam ichchaptum dhananjayah. Krishna is saying, if you can't do kevala bhakti, then you should do sadhana bhakti. Sadhana means rules and regulations. My dear Arjuna, O winner of wealth, if you cannot fix your mind upon me without deviation, then follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. In this way, develop a deep desire to attain me. So Krishna is saying, by performing sadhana bhakti, ultimately you will have this deep desire that you want to go back to Krishna. So to develop this deep desire to go back to Krishna, then you have to chant your 16 rounds or whatever it is your committed rounds are. But your objective should be to come to that 16 rounds. Observe an Ekadesi fast, do Tulsi Puja, offer Bhoga to the Lord, honor Prasadam. In this way, you are performing sadhana bhakti because we are not born as pure devotees. We have to learn how to achieve the Lord through sadhana. Okay. What are the ways? What are the rules and regulations we have to follow? First of all, we have to follow the instructions of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So all three will say, wake up early in the morning. Do not go to bed very late because the morning hours are important hours for us, for our sadhana. Then we must visit the temple regularly and offer our prayers and obeisances and whatever else it is that we want to give Krishna. We must chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Ideally, you should be chanting at least 2 rounds a day to begin with. And ultimately, you should progress to 16 rounds. If you're not progressing to 16 rounds, that means you're stagnating. So if you're not making that progress, then you should consult with your Shiksha Guru and ask for help and guidance. Because all of us want to make advancement. None of us like the idea of being left behind. That anxiety should be there, that I want to chant more rounds, I'm unable to, so I am seeking help and guidance. That anxiety has to be there. We should offer flowers to the deities. We should cook bhoga for the deities every day. We should honor prasadam every day. Every day we should listen to Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam classes. And we should hear this from the lips of pure devotees like Srila Prabhupada. What is the eligibility? There's no caste restriction. There is no age restriction. There is no class restriction. Anyone and everyone can practice sadhana bhakti. And Krishna says if you do it, ultimately, you will achieve that goal of Krishna prema. Okay? So let us say you cannot do sadhana bhakti. Then what do? Then you should do karma yoga. Abhyasepya samarthosi matkarma paramo bhava madatvam api karmani kurvan siddhim avapsyasi. Krishna says if you are unable to practice the rules, even bhakti yoga has rules. If the sadhana bhakti has rules, if you are unable to practice the rules of bhakti yoga, try to act for me alone. For by acting for me, you will reach perfection. So what does Krishna mean by this act for me alone? He is saying, then you do whatever pleases me. You know, in the sense you take it upon yourself to become a representative of Krishna and try to work for Krishna. You may not have developed the love. You may not have developed your sadhana, but at least you have started doing things that will please Krishna. How are you going to do this? So let us say you have not started your chanting journey. Then at least you can come to the temple and learn how to serve prasadam. You can come to the temple and clean Krishna's house. So there are so many other ways in which you can be engaged. So Krishna is saying by working for me, ultimately you will achieve perfection. In the sense you will begin with all of these sevas, but you will end up chanting, reading, hearing, etc. So Krishna is not lowering the bar for you. He is expanding who he considers to be his devotees. Even if you're not chanting, but if you are going to the temple and offering some seva, Krishna says that is better than those who don't even step into the temple. So engage all of our external services in serving Krishna. We should work for Krishna, and ultimately we will reach that maturity level. But Krishna is not done yet. What if you can't do that also? Here Krishna says, Athaitad apyashaktosi kartum madyogamashritah sarvakarma phalatyagam tatah puruyatatmavan. If, however, you are unable to work in this consciousness of me, which is, if you're not able to work for Krishna, then try to act giving up all results of your work and try to be self-situated. So Krishna is saying, if you can't work for me, then whatever results that you get, you give it up in service of me. So I'm such a busy person. I'm a CEO. I don't have time for bhakti because most hours of my day are gone in taking care and running my business. Then whatever earnings that I have, I can utilize it in the service of Krishna. I can give it away to be utilized in the service of Krishna. So if you're not able to work for Krishna, then what is Krishna giving you as an option? Give up the results. Krishna is not saying give up all the results. Just, yeah, of course, he's saying give up all the results. But you can start with giving up some of the results. Krishna is very practical. So in this, the ladder is not done. There is one more shloka. But we will just look at what are we actually talking about here. So there is something called punya karma. Then there is sadhana bhakti and there is prema bhakti. In punya karma, you are engaged in doing good deeds. Like, for example, giving in charity. You're doing good deeds. You're accumulating some sukriti. Whereas in sadhana bhakti, you are learning to worship Krishna in a regulated manner. We have to follow some rules and regulations until we develop that deep attachment for Krishna. Not everybody is born with deep attachment to Krishna. It's a very, very rare soul. Whereas in prema bhakti, devotion does not have any rules anymore. Therefore, Mother Yashoda is able to bind Krishna. Srimati Radharani and the gopis are able to tease Krishna. Because in such devotion, there are no more rules. The rules are for those who need to know that there is a master and they are the servant. So you have to practice being a servant, right? Until you learn to love so much that rules do not apply to you anymore. But again, having said that, this is also very rare. This prema bhakti where Shabari chews on the fruits to make sure it is sweet before offering it to the Lord. And you and I are told, no, you cannot taste the food that you're cooking in your kitchen. You have to offer it to Krishna first, only then. But look at the love that Shabari had for Lord Ram. There, that devotion is so pure, it goes beyond rules and regulations. But that doesn't mean you and I can do that. That is a deep love and affection for the Lord. So in pure devotion, the devotee will still consciously follow the rules and regulations, but many times they have forgotten that the Lord is the Supreme Lord. Therefore, the regulations don't apply to them anymore. When you're doing punya karma, you're just beginning to be attracted to bhakti. Whereas in sadhana bhakti, you're actually a practitioner. So we call ourselves sadhakas. Whereas in prema bhakti, you're not practicing, you're always in a blissful stage. You already reached that Satchidananda stage. When we are doing punya karma, it is all for our own benefit. We know we're going to benefit from it. But when you're doing sadhana bhakti, you do it because you know in the end you will get that bliss that you're looking for. That means you are also seeking. Whereas somebody who has pure love for the Lord, they are not seeking anymore because they are already existing in that stage of pure bliss. Complete love and affection for the Lord. What is the result if you do a lot of punya karma? You will take birth again and again, but you may go to the higher planets. But once your credits are exhausted, then you have to again come to Mrityaloka. If you've done some sadhana bhakti, but you've not perfected your sadhana to the stage of prema, then definitely you'll take birth again, but in a devotee family. But if you're doing already prema bhakti, then there's no birth for you again. So the purpose of doing punya karma is to eventually initiate into sadhana bhakti. The purpose of doing sadhana bhakti is to be initiated into prema bhakti. Prema bhakti is the ultimate stage, so you are already in that state of Satchidananda. So this is a good comparison to look at and see where you are. Are you doing punya karma or are you doing sadhana bhakti? Or are you doing a combination of both? Mixture of it. So Krishna offers various alternatives to encourage us to move forward in our devotional service. Using this, we can see for ourselves where we are on the ladder. So we've not touched the 12th shloka. There's one more shloka where the Lord talks about if you can't do that, then you study the scriptures. And if you can't do that, then you can do meditation. So different rungs of the ladder where Krishna considers you as a pious person. So this last section of this 12th chapter, which is from shloka 13 to 20, Krishna talks about how his devotees are very dear to him. So let us see who is dear to Krishna. Krishna says, one who is not envious, but is a kind friend to all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor, and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination. His mind and intelligence fixed on me. Such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. So like that, there are several shlokas in between the 13th shloka and the 20th shloka where the Lord talks about how his devotees are very dear to him. So every shloka ends with the Lord saying, such devotees are very dear to me. Such devotees are very dear to me. So you can go and read these shlokas on your own. But coming to the last shloka, Ye tu dharmamritamidam yatoktam paryupasate shraddha dhanam mat paramaha bhaktastetiva me priyaha. Those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. So this, in the last shloka, there's an emphasis on very, very. So Krishna is saying anybody who performs bhakti yoga, they do it with faith and they want me as the goal, such a person is very, very dear to me. So he has not said only pure devotees are very, very dear to me. He is saying those who are fixed up in devotion to him, they may be on different ranges. They may be beginners, they may be in the middle, they may be towards prema bhakti. But Krishna is saying such devotees are very, very dear to me. So let us look at the stages of bhakti and we'll conclude our session here. Within the stages of bhakti, it all begins with Shraddha, faith. Faith. And in the beginning, your faith is borrowed because you don't have your own faith that Krishna is a Supreme Lord. But you accept it when Guru says, Krishna is the Supreme Lord. You accept it with faith, but you yourself have not discovered it or realized it. So in the beginning, your faith is borrowed. It could be from Guru, Sadhu, or Shastra. So that Shraddha has to be there. When you come to the stage of Sadhu Sangha, devotee association. Then you'll do your bhajana kriya. You begin to practice sadhana bhakti. Then you reach the stage of anartha nivritti, which is all other material attachments are removed from your heart. And now you're steadily fixed up. So you can say Nishta is firm faith. You don't have any confusion anymore. You are convinced and you're past that stage of doubts. You've reached the stage where you understand Krishna as the Supreme Lord and you're fixed up in your devotional service to him. To reach the stage of prema, there are two more stages that are not listed here, which is ruchi and asakti. Ruchi is you develop a taste of devotional service and you begin to relish it until you become completely attached to Krishna. And you reach another stage called bhava. Bhava means at that stage you know what your relationship with Krishna is. In which bhava are you? Which mood? And then it is complete love for Krishna. So these are some of the stages of bhakti. There are 9 stages. Here only 6 are listed, just at a very, very high level. But this entire chapter is about bhakti yoga. And why did we say this is a manual? Because Krishna is telling you what he is giving for you in return. What is the minimum standards he wants you to follow? And he keeps expanding those standards wider and wider and wider to such a point where he does not reject anybody. He says you start somewhere, anywhere, but have faith and begin your journey. Right? So many of us may be doing sadhana bhakti for many years. We are not at that stage of pure bhakti. But one day, certainly, with the Lord's mercy and Guru's mercy, we will also reach there. So we'll end our session here. If there are any questions, happy to take that. Yeah, you can raise your hand or post a question in the chat and we can have a quick discussion. Any questions? It's a short chapter, but a very important chapter for us. So you can raise your hand if you have a question. No questions?
Krishna Mataji, again, form bhakti, any form we can think of Krishna. It's like a Bal, like a Laddu Krishna or Radha Krishna or Mahavishnu, or whichever form we can think of.
Yeah, whatever you are attracted to, that should be fine. But Prabhupada says we should worship Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda Prabhu because they are so merciful. If just by worshipping them, they will give you pure bhakti. That's why we say Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaure Tvishe Namaha. We should worship the Kali Yuga avatars of Krishna because they are far more merciful than Krishna himself. Therefore, we should worship Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda Prabhu and beg for their mercy to give us that Krishna Prema. Yeah? So if you had to choose who you want to worship, then it should begin with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay, there's a question in the chat. What is the difference between impersonal and Mayavadis? Okay. So there are two terms, Mayavadis and Brahmavadis. Brahmavadis, even if they know that Krishna has a form, their preference is to focus on the formless aspect. Therefore, even Brahmavadis are considered by Krishna to be his devotees. Because at least they are acknowledging that he has a form, but their preference is to worship the formless Brahman aspect. They are called Brahmavadis. Whereas Mayavadis reject that there is a separate entity called the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Mayavadi philosophy, you and I are God, we've just not realized it yet. Which if you ask the Vaishnavas, they will say that is as good as atheism. That actually they say is an insult to the Lord. To tell the Lord he doesn't exist, we are all gods. So that is actually Mayavadi philosophy. If we worship Bhagavatam, what it will consider? Since the Bhagavatam is the pastimes of the Lord, it is not considered formless worship. You are worshipping the Lord, but you're worshipping the Lord's pastimes. And the pastimes of the Lord is non-different than the Lord. Similarly, chanting the names of the Lord is not formless worship. Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that the Lord has invested all his energy in his names. Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktihi. We recite this verse, right? In Sikshastakam. Nam Akari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shakti. All your Shakti potency is there in your names. So chanting the holy names of the Lord is not considered impersonal worship. It is personal worship because there is no difference between Bhagavatam and Krishna, and just as there is no difference between the names of the Lord and Krishna. Okay, there's another question. I have come across a post of type of addiction under that given as addicted to watching unadulterated scenes. Spirit is okay. I just want to clarify the question. So if somebody is addicted to watching objectionable videos, will it harm their spiritual progress? Oh, most definitely it will harm their spiritual progress. Because you're doing it for your own pleasure. So anything that you're doing for your own pleasure will separate you from Krishna, right? Is it spiritual suicide? Well, technically the spirit soul is eternal. So the word spiritual suicide seems like an oxymoron. But in reality, you're preventing the soul from achieving that spiritual bliss. And because you have allowed your body and your mind and your intelligence to become the master, then in that way you're torturing the soul. So for the soul, it is torture to be occupying a physical body. In the material world, definitely it is torture for the soul. So in that sense, you could say it is spiritual suicide. Because you're not taking care of the soul. You're not giving the soul what it wants and desires and deserves. Yeah. So yes, bhakti does not go hand in hand with watching objectionable content and also engaging in objectionable behavior or conduct. It does not go hand in hand. Yes, but that's also an addiction. But it can be easily cured simply by chanting. It can be cured, for sure. Because the most powerful medicine is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is a cure for all diseases. We need not worry. Yeah. Okay. I hope that answers your question, Chinmay, and also Tulmani. And any other questions? Yes, Dr. Gupta. You want to unmute yourself? Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji.
Yes.
Is this subtle body goes with soul with our karmas?
I'm sorry, Prabhu, I could not hear you clearly. What was that?
Is this subtle body
Yes.
goes with soul after death, having
Yes,
our
that's
karmas?
That's correct, yeah. So all your vasanas and desires, everything is carried in the subtle body. So yes, the soul travels with the subtle body until it gets a new body.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Subtle body is also material. It's not spiritual. But you can spiritualize it just like Krishna is saying. Engage your mind in always thinking about me, utilize your intelligence in my service, then definitely you will come back to me. Yeah. Okay. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Mataji.
Yes, I think Ravi Prabhu gave me a little bit more information about the Marjara Kishora Nyaya, the Muni who talked about it. Thank you very much, Prabhu. If you can just send it to me on WhatsApp, that will be great. I'd like to read up a little bit more.
It's in Wikipedia now.
It's in
Google
Wikipedia.
Wiki. Oh.
All right. Okay. Very good. This was that. What was the post? I am not able to. See, you put something in chat. The truth no one tells you. Smoking is slow suicide. Drinking is manufactured depression. Drugs is guaranteed insanity. Escape the traps before they destroy you. Yeah, watching objectionable content is considered most spiritually harmful. All of it is spiritually harmful because it's preventing you from focusing on Krishna. There is a physical explanation for it, that if you drain all of your what do you call it, if you're not protecting certain energies within you, then it is very difficult for you to connect to Krishna. But it doesn't mean you cannot rectify yourself. Definitely transformation is possible. Okay.
Saji, the other day I asked about that Aryaman. I just said that Aryaman is son of Aditi, one of the son of Aditi. And he is for that, as you said, the Pitrus.
Pitrus, yes. Okay. Any other questions from anyone? Okay. All right, we will end our session and we'll begin our new section tomorrow, which will be chapter 13. We've concluded the Bhakti Yoga section of the Bhagavad Gita, and we're going to enter the last 6 chapters. So join us tomorrow. Mancha kalpadarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrindi ki jai, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gurudev ki jai, Shri Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna devotees, thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you Mataji.
Thank you.
Hare
Krishna Mataji, Dandavata Pranam Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you.
Hare
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranams.
Dandavat Pranam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavata Pranam.
Dhanyavad.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Bol. Hare Krishna Mataji.